This is the Hofstra Radio Alumni Audio Yearbook. Today is May 20th, 2024. Please tell us your name and the years you were at Hofstra Radio.
Hello, my name is John Alfonso Iadevaia. I was at WRHU from 2008 to 2012.
Thank you, John, for joining us and coming to share your stories. If you don't mind, could you tell us about some of the shows or programs you worked on at the station?
So I was like, to put it was the simplest way, I was like a Swiss Army knife, if you will. I was mostly with the sports department, but I also did a lot of engineering and production work for Newsline. I did updates for them as well for sports traffic. I was host of the Aggressive Edge heavy metal show, the Jazz Cafe as well. I helped engineer a bunch of the community volunteer shows over the weekend. Other sports shows as well, was reporting, did some election night coverage as well too. So, and a bunch of behind the scenes stuff we'll get into.
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot of area to cover. Did you have any titles or positions at the station?
Yes, I was the first position was the engineering, not manager, but I helped like the main engineer of the station. I think it was Joe DeRosa at the time. So I was like under him, like making sure all of our remote equipment was good. The studio equipment was fine when he needed me to check it. And I also the production manager as well of the station. So I've listened lately, and at least a handful of elements are from my creation, or at least under my creation, are still being aired to this day at the station.
Nice. That's a lot of fun to hear that stuff back. So clarification on the positions. Was it executive engineer or remote operations chief, or neither?
I guess they changed the title. So I was mostly in charge of, just like I said, just making sure the equipment was fine. I would give Joe DeRosa a hand here and there. Like I would actually at least twice joined him going to the Hofstra Towers, the Constitution, I think it is,
Oh, that's
where
fun.
the RHU antenna is. So going up into the attics of the tower to check in on that. Those were quite interesting times, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's fun stuff. I'm sure we'll get into that. When you were on the air, did you have any nicknames or on-air personas?
Yes. The main one, or the most notable one, Johnny Vowels. So my last name, Iadevaia. Uh, if you listen to this first time, you would likely not get it right. 6 vowels in it as well. Lots of pronunciation with it. It was our sports member Sadiq Faruqi who came up with the name as well, and of course the ingenious Ed Ingalls who figured out the perfect pronunciation for my last name as well. So whenever anyone asks how do you pronounce Iadevaia, I tell them just remember the Rocky song "Eye of the Tiger."
Nice.
Yeah, so Eye of the Tiger, Iadevaia.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Had that ever occurred to you, or is that something Ed invented?
No, I invented it on the spot. I remember it now. It was actually, I think, my second to last. Um, it was the RHU banquet, actually, when we're still at Jericho Terrace.
Hmm.
And he was going to be presenting me with one of the senior awards, I think, or just scholarship award. And he asked me how to pronounce it fully. Of course, Ed's still struggling at the time until we put two and two together. And he did right there on the spot in the cocktail room. Like, oh, wow, that was easy. That solves a lot of problems for me in the future.
Oh, wow, very clever. And I love Johnny Vowels. That's great.
Oh
That's
yeah,
that's hilarious.
it has stuck with me through my professional career too. So whenever I see anyone or the alumni or close friends from the radio station, it's always Vowels. How's it going, Vowels?
Nice. That is great. I love it. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. I always like to know what it is that brought people to the station in the first place, and then if you could paint a picture of what the station was like, maybe people that you met, what it looked like, what it smelled like, what was happening at the station when you first showed up.
So when I started Hofstra back in the fall of 2007, I was actually a music major. I wanted to be a music teacher
Hmm.
when I graduated. Uh, didn't work out. Realized I came from a small school, Carl Place, and realized that I was a small fish in like an ocean. I was like, oh, this is not going to work. So in the spring of 2008, I was trying to figure out what to do, and I think it was like looking in myself, my parents as well helping me, I realized like I liked doing like the play-by-play of games for hockey, for other sports. And so in the summer, I signed up for Ed Ingles' sports broadcasting camp. Actually,
Mm.
that's what got the ball rolling. And then eventually, like when we were done, he said, "Hey, you're still in college at Hofstra. You should sign up for the radio station." So I followed him to RHU when the semester started and got signed up through Bruce, through John, did the whole interview process and the course from there. And it was quite a world I had no experience in or what to expect. So it was all fresh and took it in all at once too.
Wow.
The class I remember being in Berlin, Berlin Hall, right next to the radio station. We had a big class. 2007 to 2008, and even the 2009 classes were pretty big, because that was when the station was really expanding at the time. We had a lot of people, a
So
lot.
when you say a lot, is that 50 people? Is that 100 people?
We had
Or
around, yeah, we definitely had around 50, maybe 60 people, I would say.
uh-huh.
And these are likes of Kyle Geisman, Anthony Berra, Matt Napolitano, Emily Witchick was in the class as well, and a few notable ones too from from Newsline at the time, and people have gone on as well to have some good careers in the media field in general.
Right, right. Wow. So I just want to get the timeline right. So when you took Ed Ingles' camp, was that the summer before you started at Hofstra, or where were
The,
you?
sum- the summer before I started my sophomore year of college, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just to flesh out the timeline, so I started RH. I did the class in the fall of 2007. Sorry, of 2008, and I started in 2009. Then technically,
Okay.
um, but I stayed a fifth year at Hofstra, so I had that like extra year under my belt too.
Okay. So, but you were spending more of your time, I guess, at least initially, in the music department, working over there and working in studio there, or what were you doing with music?
Um, so I actually still had to finish the rest of my music major commitments actually. So that wrapped up in the spring of 2009. But when I started at radio, I was still a trainee, so I was like fresh, learning the ropes in sports, doing the aggressive edge and the jazz cafe as well. I think it was the jazz cafe actually I started with at the time. Then went
Mm.
to aggressive edge. I flipped back and forth trying to get the required slot I needed. Um, but I remember those early days just trying to make sure, not messing up, making sure that Bruce was able to sleep at nights, making sure that we didn't have dead air for long, and just, enjoying it, I guess, because it was, like I said, it was a new experience. I had no idea what to expect from the media field. But I do remember though, like those early days of just in the fire of just like learning and getting to know everyone in the radio station as well. That was a special time, I think, in RHU because of the group of people we had there. Just like especially like the class above us, above me, and the class I was a part of as well. So it would be the 2010, the 2011, and 2012 classes. Like we were a pretty good group, and I think, and just even that spring semester, like I said, when I was in my training phase, like everyone was very welcoming, trying to make everyone feel welcomed and a part of the station, within the studio and outside the studio, especially.
Hmm. So, do you remember who was teaching the class? Obviously, Bruce would have been there, and I guess Ed. But do you remember any of the students who were teaching, or I think you mentioned a few names of people that you started with, but anybody else that you remember from that
Uh,
time?
Teaching, I would definitely say was Chris Ortiz was one of the big leaders. Jen Cephalou was one of them too. I know Janet Santucci. I don't remember if he taught. I think he did. But he was at least one of the leaders up there. If not during the training class, he was at least teaching us when I was in that spring semester at the very least, like
Hmm.
just starting to learn everything at the station itself. Veronica D'Souza as well was there too, although I think she was in my class, I think, if I remember correctly. But like she quickly learned the ropes too and got a leadership position there as well.
Hmm.
There was a lot. And regarding sports, we had Mike Leslie helping teach too. I think Matt Shores had just left or was leaving shortly at that time. But I remember learning from him. The alumni as well were playing a big part too, since this was such a big infusion of youth as well in the
Hmm.
sports department too.
Wow, that's a lot of great names. Thank you for sharing those. That's a lot of good company to be around, and like you said, everybody was making you feel welcome. But so you get through the training class and you pass an audition, I guess, and then you're on the air. Do you remember getting on the air the first time?
To tell you the truth, I do not. Not the first time. I just remember though, like those I guess just the period in general, just learning the ropes. I do remember like being in the studio making like an audition tape, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
or just like fooling around with like mic breaks, just trying to like trying to play it off. The incarnation of Johnny Vowels had not been born at the time, but there were the early days of just trying to have some fun with it on the radio. I wouldn't really get into like any on air responsibilities and such until I think the fall or at the very least the winter of the following semester.
Okay. Okay. I'm curious. You mentioned possibly wanting to be a music teacher. I assume that you played instruments in high school?
I did. So I back in high school, I played euphonium horn, baritone, the tuba as well.
Uh-huh.
I was in jazz band as well, which I was really passionate about. I was actually in the jazz band of at school, the in the music program, they had a jazz club that I was part of, and I was also part of pep band too for those first 2 years I was at college. I don't remember if I did it the last year or not, in 2009. I may have actually stuck it out for at least a third year with pep band,
Mm.
but it was a lot of fun. And the one thing I will say about my time in college is I basically was a resident of Hofstra in all, but actually living
Yeah.
in a bed there.
Yeah.
So I was part of the radio station. I did the music for a little while too in my early years, but I was also playing club hockey as well since I started in 2007 as well. And as I throughout my time as the years went on, it basically just whittled down to the radio station and hockey pretty much. And trying to balance those two at the same time was quite something.
Were you a commuter student?
Yes, I was. I lived
Right, Carl
only
Place. Yeah.
our place, Westbury. So that was only like a 10-minute drive for me from campus.
So you were just there from morning till night and beyond and
Pretty much.
weekends. Yeah.
I would get to campus around like 8 o'clock classes or just to be there, and then wouldn't come home until like maybe like 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep. Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. So I was trying to draw a comparison there or a link between your experience in jazz band and then doing the jazz show. Did you feel comfortable with the music? Were you familiar with certain pieces or artists that you could just
I
jump right in?
definitely, I will admit, I did look up certain songs that I did play and perform in the
Nice.
jazz band, even in the college band as well. Some I did recognize, some I did not. I do remember one time. I think it might have actually been that first in was it the spring of 2009 when I just started the Jazz Cafe. So in one of my high school jazz band performances, we played the Chicago song 25 or 6 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun song we played. I guess we jazzified it because it's technically, I guess, a rocks or like
Right.
jazz rock, if you will. And I remember playing it on the air, and John Santucci just coming into the studio and she's like, "Why are you playing this song?" And I did not care. I loved it. It was fun, and hey, it had jazz, so technically it worked.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely straddling the two fields there when Chicago was at its height. It was definitely uh, touching base in both places. But that's cool that you could make a connection and make it personal and meaningful to you. It wasn't like you were just spinning random discs.
No,
You were making a connection.
no. I'll add another thing as well. So in my early days at a Copster as well, I was part of the Gamers Club too. So and at the time, what was it Guitar Hero and Rock Band were really taking off, or like were in the zenith of its power.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, like, you're playing the rock songs and stuff. That's when my passion for heavy metal actually started, and eventually led me to do the aggressive edge. I think like a year or so later too.
Mm. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I was going to say you don't see a lot of crossover between jazz aficionados and metalheads, but now I'm thinking about some of the people I knew. Yeah, there's a bit of crossover, and there can be an appreciation of that because those are two very different genres, and you said you're involved in both, and that's
Hmm.
interesting that's how that happened. And then you're also doing sports. Where does
Yep.
that come from?
Um, well, like I said, in my when I was transitioning, was in the spring of 2008. Yeah, so in my freshman year, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I decided not to be a music teacher. And so I'm a big hockey fan, and listening to the New Jersey Devils games. I'm a Devils fan.
Mm,
Listening to Doc Emmerich announce the games, and sometimes when I would go the Islander, well, to bring it all together. So I would go to a lot of Islander games since they were right here in town. Eventually, I became a fan of the Islanders during the sports department's coverage of it.
right.
But I would call the games sometimes, like mouth it to myself, or even just like say it out loud with my friends, and they get annoyed when I'm trying to do the play-by-play and they're trying to watch it because I like the announcing part of it. I just like covering sports, and I think that's where it initially came from. For my passion at the time for trying to get into sports and get into announcing.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I mean, you can't really do better than Doc Emmerich for someone
Mm-hmm.
to listen to and emulate. I mean, that I grew up an Islander fan, but I always had respect for the way he would call a game, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can see that definitely building up a passion or at least an idea of like, well, I want to do that too. So
Mm-hmm.
you are dipping a toe into all of these places. Um, were Was it easy to get acclimated at the station as a whole, or were you trying these different things out and finding people to hang out with? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, when did you feel comfortable socially and jumping into these various jobs?
I guess I probably have. It was in that first semester I started at the station. I would say just because like I just threw myself into it,
Hmm.
and with the people around me as well. Like we just wanted to have a lot of fun. We were all passionate. We found like a lot of common ground too. Also, especially with the sports department, it was easy to like to get along and like to get to know each other because we got sports to keep us in common. And a lot of us had a lot of shared interest as well. But with I will say outside the sports department though, I did get to know a lot of the other members very well, and especially that summer too, since I was local. And a big thing with the radio station as well is if you could stay local or like stay on campus to participate over the summer and get those extra hours of reps in
Hmm.
when no one's really around or no one's really looking, that was a big part of it too. And just me fully integrating with WRHU and my fellow classmates at the time as well. One of them, I think, was Chris Ortiz, and a few of the other members, I think Vinny as well, had a house right off campus, not too far from, I forget the school that's behind the law school, the elementary school. They had a
Uh-huh.
house not too far from there. So we'd hang out there at least that first semester I was there. And it was fun. Like we had we'd like do our stuff at the radio station, whether it be like learning to engineer, learning to get reps with Newsline and do updates. Oh, and the morning show as well. I forgot I also hosted the morning show eventually, but that's also where I got a lot of reps in too in the summer. So like we just hang out, do stuff at the radio station. I also worked at Hofstra too at the time. I was a custodian, so I pretty much had access to anywhere I wanted to go.
Wow.
So I would just hang out pretty much all day at campus, and then I just hang out with whoever's still in town afterwards.
Wow. I mean, some people say that, the idea of going to college, you go to find a career and a job and that's what you do. And some people say, no, you go to college and try things out and look
Hmm.
for new experiences and keep an open mind. And it seems like you did that and then some.
What I will admit is that I'll say this about myself because now I've had time to reflect. on who I was, I guess, a decade ago. And my
Mm.
friend from the station will probably say the same thing. I was an ignorant kid at the time. Not ignorant as in like I would shut myself off to things, but just more so I had no idea about anything
Uh-huh.
coming into this. Like I said, I had no background in media coming into college or any idea of how all the, the nuts and bolts of it worked. They'll tell you, like I would come in like I was the kid in the Devils jersey and the Devils sweatshirt walking in, or just like wearing whatever like thing I was passionate about. I had no idea what was going on in the world. Really, just wanted to just get involved, just learn and have fun, and just I guess discover who I was. Coming in from high school as well, like I knew like the high school version of me wasn't who I wanted to be. I was also like, what? I was big. I was pretty overweight as well. And like that summer was like a big transformation for myself too. Like I was like 270 at the time. And that summer I just worked on myself. And by the fall of 2009, I had lost like 50 pounds
Wow.
just doing so much working out, staying strict to a diet. I think having the radio station as well, moving around so much, has also helped too.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were a constant source of movement and activity and trying things out and figuring out that discipline and that way to, manage your time and your energy. That sounds like a lot of growing up in a short amount of time.
And let me tell you, I had still not come close to where I guess am now, or where I should have been, I guess, grown up wise. But yes, I had come a long way at least that summer.
Wow. Wow, what a journey. That's amazing. And yeah, I'm just trying to keep track of all the things that you're doing and you're saying yes to things. Now, I guess because you were at the station so much, was it a case of, well, hey, John's here, ask him to do that, or you'd hear something like, "Oh, well, I'll try that or I'll try this." Or it was a combination of the both?
It was a combination of both, I would say. I do remember, like, for sports, for example, by then I'd gotten comfortable with starting to engineer. We had football coming up. I knew I probably wasn't going to get involved. I don't think I did engineer football at the time, but I did like start cutting my teeth with summer baseball, getting ready for like the soccer broadcast. I don't think we did field hockey at the time. No. But yeah, with the Hofstra sports then, and also like doing the sports updates too, and also like helping with Newsline too. That was a big thing. In morning show, like the talk shows were the big thing. But I did learn early on, like they told us that if you do like your engineering, your production work, that was like the easiest way, not just to get on air eventually, but also just to get opportunities to at least be part of broadcast, be part of the crews as well, and to learn too. So as long as you're there, as long as you're doing something, you're doing the right thing. And that's
Yeah.
why I said, like, whenever someone needed something or if I heard something, I just threw myself right at it.
Wow. You mentioned football, and we've talked a little bit just uh, tiptoed around the Islanders, but I think this is about the time period. Correct me if I'm wrong. That Hofstra football goes away, and
Yes.
Islanders hockey comes in. Is that right?
So fall 2009 was a big year for football. Yes, it was. That was the year, unfortunately, and I remember it to this day. But before I get to that, I will
Yeah.
say like working football was fun. I'm very sad that it was short lived as well, because Hofstra did have a notable like uh what is it, mid tier, if you want to call it that. I forgot what the official term is, but like they had a good program. You had guys who have gone to the NFL, like Speedy's gone there for as well. Stephen Bowen's been there too. Like they produced notable NFLers that have gone on to have good careers.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually, I do remember a scandal actually that happened on one of the broadcasts. I will just preference it by this, that someone on the engineering side, or just at least like inadvertently, had left the mics on during a break,
Oh
and
no.
yeah, certain language or just certain things that should not have been said on the air were said, and it that was almost the death knell, believe it or not, for a lot of things.
Wow.
I don't know if it's been mentioned not like before, but yeah, a few notable members of the sports department were suspended at the time for at least a week, a month or so. It was a bad mistake, and like the worst, the worst. And that Bruce did not sleep for nights after it.
Yeah, yeah, I
But
bet. But this was during
uh,
a football broadcast?
it was during a football broadcast, but because of that, a lot of other members had to step up. I think I was one of them, at least from the engineering side, like giving a hand as well in the production studio. A lot of guys, like I know, like Mitch Merman and Christian Heimel, definitely like stepped up during this time.
Hmm.
RHU was in big trouble from this, but luckily, Bruce, Ed, John, they stepped up for our guys. They, of course, you had to apologize. A lot of things did change a bit from it, I guess, just from the structural standpoint,
Yeah.
and like from our point as well, like how we did the engineering in the background. But luckily, everyone was able to get back on air. There were no like long-term ramifications for the members who were suspended. It's just it happened. We got to do better. That was it.
Yeah. So did I guess by that point, did you have a good understanding of how professional and serious an operation Hofstra Radio was, or was this sort of like, wow, this is big time, I have to step up?
I think this was one of the moments that had made me and others realize, yeah, this was that we're really like we have to be reinforcing the professionalism that we had learned in training class and what everyone like the upperclassmen were teaching us at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and we really stuck to that professionalism after that incident, for sure.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what they call them, teachable moments. That is a learning moment. You definitely are glad to walk away from that.
Hmm.
Wow. Um, so as you're doing all this, did you find that there was a moment when you thought, I'm comfortable on the air, I like doing this, I'm good at it? Was there a light bulb moment, or did you just kind of gradually get used to it?
I would say it took a while. I will admit that because uh, going back to the conversation we had about working on myself, confidence, especially on air, was still something I was working on at the time.
Mm,
And I don't think it really got good, I would say, until the following year when I was in my, I like to call one of the first of three upperclassmen years.
hmm
2009 to 2010 semester, it was a lot of just getting myself comfortable for the opportunity. And eventually it did come um, in a baseball broadcast. I remember we did with Christian Heimel. That was my first, I guess, like real on air as a color analyst. And it was something to say the least. I was definitely a nervous wreck for it. This was before the baseball stadium had like the little press box. You were sitting at a table next right behind the backstop.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, no wind thankfully, but we had to tape everything down in case like a gust came out. Yeah, it was, and then it was that summer. The summer of 2010 to 2011 was really where it picked up. I guess I put in a lot more reps to get ready because I knew the fall of 2011 was when I'd really be getting some on-air opportunities. Because we mentioned football going away.
Mm,
Oh, I didn't mention that as well. We were talking about that before. Just what happened. If you give me a second to elaborate.
sure.
December 3rd. That was the day that Hofstra football ceased to exist. I had just come in to get ready for my classes, hanging out at the radio station, and I just remember, I think it was Christian Heimel running down the hallway screaming like, "They killed football! Everyone get to the studio!" or something like that. Like it was just like literally like DEFCON 1 alert just going off across the radio station. We had no idea what was happening. And sure enough, we found out that it was only 2 days after, yeah, because it was a Tuesday. So that Saturday was their last game. I think it was against Northeastern, who ironically had announced they were killing their football program as well.
Mm.
So that Tuesday, December 3rd, they called the coach in. He thought he was going to get fired, but they told him, yeah, they're canning the program. An hour later, they told the players then that the program was going away. And then an hour after that, around 9 o'clock, I think, is when we found out that they were making an announcement that they were getting rid of football.
Wow.
And it was quite, I don't remember everything else, but I just remember that morning, just everyone screaming and running around, like basically flailing, like, oh my goodness. And the days, weeks, and months of like, oh my goodness, there's no more football. Like we don't have like homecoming. Like what are they going to do with homecoming? Like, what are we going to do as like our premiere thing for the following year?
Wow. So there was no expectation of this coming. It really caught everybody flat-footed.
Completely. No one knew this was coming. The school held this close to the chest. It was totally unexpected. I mean, I think again, I go back to Christian Heimel. He had a lot of wise words. I will say that I still think about in my time at the station. He said during the morning show after the morning show after the next day, like Hofstra football was that precious painting in the museum or like at the house. Like not many people noticed it. No one really like paid a
Hmm.
lot of attention to it. But like when it was gone, I was like, oh my goodness, like it's gone. It's supposed to be there, but it's not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a dramatic moment, and uh, it changed the fortunes of the station, or at least it would assume. And then shortly thereafter, the Islanders become available.
Yep, that was completely out of nowhere. I know you spoke to Mitch Merman
Yeah.
recently. I think what he said was was the best way to put it, and how everything came together with it. It was completely unexpected. Uh, it was just like a college station's doing the professional sporting
Mm.
event for a professional team in the United States. How does that come about? And of course, like we were told, and we were talking about it as well. Like there's gonna be people from the moment like this happens from when we're doing it. Like they're gonna think like, okay, we're a college student, college station. Like there's no way that we're putting together like a quality like broadcast on par with like other teams, for example. Like they'd always look down on this for us, and that I think was a big motivating factor as well, because like we wanted to make sure that we put it on that level of like what the Dallas Stars were doing, what the Rangers were doing, or like what like any of the other like at the time 28, 27 teams were doing in terms like the quality of their broadcast. And it was a lot of learning too.
Right.
For me, like this was, I guess, the way a dream. Like I said, I'm a hockey guy. Like I wanted to get on air, and suddenly we now have a professional hockey team we're doing. I'm like, wow, that's unexpected. This is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and I really appreciated at the time as well, like the leaders of the station, Bruce, John, and Ed especially, were really like helping us out. I think it was mentioned before, like we had Barry Sanders, for example, the Islanders' old play-by-play man from the '80s, came in and helped us with workshops, for example, teaching us like what to look for in the game.
Mm.
Uh, I do remember I was engineering those games a lot too, and doing the production for all of the commercials, or oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting what it's called that we played, the quote unquote not commercials. You know what
The
I'm
public
trying.
service announcements,
Yes,
PSAs.
those the PSAs. Yeah, trying to put those together as well, and throughout that and the following year as well, because I did a lot of production, especially for the second year too. Um, it was a lot. It was a lot of opportunities, a lot of work, a lot of late nights as well
I
too.
bet. Yeah. I really like that you sort of mentioned that motivating factor, sort of that underdog spirit, because I think throughout the history of Hofstra Radio, going back to folks I've talked to from the 1960s and up until your time, and I guess beyond, there's this idea of, for whatever reason, there's various scenarios, but there's this, people don't expect this, or the university doesn't expect this out of us, and we're going to do it anyway. We're going to make it happen. We're going to do professional level radio with what we have and make it sound great.
hmm And it didn't. It wasn't just in sports too. It was also in news as well. It was in music. Like I said, we had a good group. We had a good group of people at the radio station who just wanted. We were all goal oriented, but at the same time, we all got along. We all wanted to have a good time. Like it was like it was a frat slash sorority, like whatever you want to call it, like our group. And yeah, like any group, of course, there were definitely moments where we would all bicker. We would all, not get along at certain times. I will not say the specific incident, but there was a time I remember during a summer Newsline where there was a lot of tension, let's just say, between a few members who were in the studio once. And the moment that the Newsline show ended, let's just say certain people blew their lid in
Mm.
studio when the mics were off finally. And watching that on the little security camera at the time, I remember was quite entertaining, I will say.
Yeah, it just it's we put in a lot of effort, and there's a lot of passion, and sometimes the visions don't meet, and for the most part, I think we learn to figure things out when you've got leaders like Bruce and John and Ed. They're going to help you sort those things out, but
Oh,
in the
for sure.
moment, yeah, it's a lot.
And the other thing also, like we're all college kids still at the time.
Yeah,
Like we don't know like the professional world. Like we're all just trying to figure it out as we get along too.
yeah,
So we're all trying to process those emotions, all the stresses as well of like, what's going on in our lives, school on top of that as well. So, a lot to take in, but a lot of memorable times for sure. And a lot
yeah.
to learn too.
Yeah, such a series of memorable events there. But I want to go back to when you started at the station, when you showed up and you're taking the training class and getting acclimated. At that moment in time, what did you think Hofstra Radio would mean to you, and what did it become?
Honestly, I had no idea. Like I said, I was a kid who had no idea what the world was, but I just wanted to embrace every moment of it. And what I will say now, in the year 2004, on the date of May 20th, looking at the calendar, at age 35, I will say that it meant everything to me, RHU. It definitely helped shape who I was, and it helped me learn, not just the way the media went, but like just how life worked, how the world really went. Like it really just opened my eyes to all these things, all these possibilities, and the friendships I made along the way, and just things to a better grasp of what to expect. And even after graduating from RHU and Hofstra University, there was still a lot of stuff I didn't know. But it gave me the tools at least to prepare and at least to combat like the stresses, the uncertainties, and just the wrenches that life threw in my path, pretty much.
Mm, wow, John, what a journey! I'm smiling ear to ear the whole time, just really enjoying these stories and learning about your journey. And I'm so glad you reached out to do this. I am going to send you some more questions, and hopefully you've got some more stories, and we can do this again.
Plenty. I'll be happy to share more of them.